Welcome back to the Hot Action Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kerr, and that was our brand new theme song by the recording artist known as Apollo. Apollo is a friend of the show, and a link to his website will be available in the description. Alright, and as per usual, we're going to be picking the whole slate of NFL games for Week 3. We'll be going over my best bets and my picks for Survivor. But let's start off with a little bit of what have we learned from the past couple of weeks of the NFL. Some notable trends that I've noticed that are kind of the opposite of the way I would have thought they would have been are that the offenses of most of the league have started really slowly. Usually the offense starts out a bit more like ahead of the defenses, but this year so many of the games have been so low scoring, offenses have been so anemic. This has been good for people who want to bet like unders, and that's how I've been making some money this year. I'll be shouting out my under bets on Twitter just, in case you guys are interested. But yeah, that is a big deal. No one is getting the ball in the end zone. And in terms of teams that aren't doing the way they're supposed to, I'm going to start by saying is Arizona has been god-awful compared to what they were projected to be. I know they lost Davy Johnson, but I don't know, that's really not an excuse to, be tied up with that Colts team for the whole time and to lose to Detroit. Detroit might be better than I expected them to be, but seriously, they are not playing very well for a team that was projected to potentially challenge for the division in the NFC West. Cincinnati as well is another team that has really surprised me. They are an absolute dumpster fire. They had to fire their offensive coordinator and replace him with some guy named Laser, so I guess they're the Laser Cats now until further notice. Marvin Lewis is currently deep in the hot seat for first coach fired. He is staring down the barrel of a loaded gun if these guys don't start to improve somewhere. They haven't even scored a touchdown yet. It's absurd. And another team that is just failing to perform up to their standards is the New York Giants. Last year they were a playoff team, and this year it looks like they are going to be nowhere near the playoffs. They also have an incredibly anemic offense. Their defense seems to be able to keep them in games, but they just cannot score enough to win. You got Ben McAdoo with his giant fucking laminated card of plays on the sideline, and after the game he's just throwing Eli under the bus for not being able to get snaps off. This team is a dumpster fire as well. I think that they are a bet against until further notice. And then there is my team, the Seattle Seahawks, whose offensive line plays on roller skates, apparently. Good God, they're bad. The defense keeps them in games, and the offense is so terrible. Like, the defense has to basically perform miracles in order to keep them in the games. This last week, they were playing against San Francisco, and they looked like horse shit. When you looked at the scoreboard from the game, you would assume that nobody scored a touchdown, but the Seahawks actually did manage to score a miraculous fourth quarter touchdown after the defense of the 49ers had just been exhausted by time on possession itself. As I've said before, I have a lot of trouble betting on the Seahawks, and they have not made it any easier this year. Oh my God, fire Tom Cable. And in terms of a league-wide trend, I think it is safe to say that the AFC, in terms of the top-end talent, is actually quite a bit better than the NFC. I think it's been the other way for the past few years, but nowadays it's looking like the AFC is much stronger. All right, so now I'd like to take a moment to talk about my performance so far, which is basically the reason to listen to this podcast. Week 1, I went 5-9-1, which is admittedly disastrous, but this week 2, I made up for it, went 8-8, which is not amazing, but it'll do for now. But it's trending up, which I think is good. First week in my best bets, I went 2-2-1, so that's even. The next week, 3-2. So if you listen to my best bets, you've made money. Not a lot, but you've made money. And in terms of Survivor, we have not been eliminated, so I'm going to go ahead and say that's positive. Altogether, when you consider picks, best bets, and Survivor, I would say I'm doing mediocre, not great, but I still think that But as I continue to watch the games, I feel that I will be improving. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get to picking some damn games, shall we? All right, first up, on Thursday Night Football, we have an absolute eye gouger. We have the LA Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are 2.5-point home dogs. Basically, I'd say this game's like a stay away betting and watching wise. But if you have to bet anything, maybe bet the under, because both these teams have decent defense and pretty terrible offense. But since I have to pick every game, I'm going to go ahead and take the Rams minus 2.5. I just think the 49ers are god-awful. And at least the Rams have shown us they can score points against bad teams. Okay, on to the Sunday morning games. So this Sunday, don't forget, we have a super early Sunday morning game. So don't forget to get your picks in or set your fantasy lineups for the London game, which is the Baltimore Ravens at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 3.5-point home dogs. The fact that they are considered a home team here is kind of a joke. I don't know. I'm just going to be betting the Ravens because I don't see how they could possibly lose to Jacksonville, who is terrible. Their defense is going to eat up Blake Bortles, and the elite Joe Flacco will probably take apart the Jacksonville defense. I am taking Baltimore minus 3.5. And as for the regular Sunday morning games, we will be starting off with the divisional rivalry, the New York Giants versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are laying 5.5 points. The Giants have done absolutely nothing on offense. 5.5 is a lot of points. Their defense is all right. It's a tough decision, but ultimately I will be taking Philadelphia. They're at home. They've looked good this season, in my opinion. They've battled it out to a win and a close loss against a really good team on the road. This is their home opener. I think they'll be coming in pretty hot. Give me the Eagles. And then next we've got Pittsburgh Steelers at the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 7.5-point home dogs. The Bears have just looked pretty atrocious last week, and they've started their season off by playing three pretty solid teams. That being said, I don't really see them beating the Steelers or covering, so give me the Steelers. I don't care that it's at Soldier Field. The Steelers are coming in hot. They're going to beat them. Steelers minus 7.5. Next, we have the Atlanta Falcons at the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are getting 2.5 points, and both these teams are coming to the game 2-0, which means one team will be leaving undefeated and the other team will be leaving undefeated at 2-1. So I tend to think that Atlanta is a lot better than Detroit. Detroit's had some pretty easy competition so far, I tend to think, and Atlanta, I think, should come in and beat them up pretty good. When that offense was humming against Green Bay, they looked basically unstoppable. I'm going to go ahead and believe that that's the real them. I'm taking Atlanta minus 2.5. Still in the morning games, we have Tampa Bay at Minnesota. Minnesota is giving up 2.5 points. Now, this is an interesting game because even without the Vikings starting quarterback, Sam Bradford, the Buccaneers are still getting points. I think that seems a little bit silly considering how good they looked last week. I know it's a short sample size, but I mean, the Vikings got trounced by the Steelers last week, so I don't know what to think. Give me Tampa plus points. Up next, we've got the Saints visiting the Panthers. The Panthers are giving up 5.5 points. I find this game pretty interesting. I think the 5.5 points is going to be the deciding factor for me because I mean, although New Orleans is 0-2 and Carolina's 2-0, I thought Carolina looked pretty shit in their victories and New Orleans looked pretty decent in their losses. So I'm going to be picking New Orleans plus the points. Now we come to what's got to be one of the strangest lines of the day. We got Denver minus 2.5 at Buffalo plus 2.5. I think 2.5 is just not even close to the right number here. Give me Denver all day. They're better in every phase of the game, I am sure. This is going in the best bets. Next up, we've got Cleveland at Indianapolis. Indianapolis is a 0.5-point home dog. And this is a pretty tough game to call. Both these teams are 0-2. Both have been playing pretty terribly. Both have shown signs of life in some of the games they've been playing, but ultimately they're pretty bad. Cleveland last week, their quarterback is prone to migraines. Indianapolis is on their third-string QB. I'm just going to have to take the home dogs. Here we go. I'm taking Indianapolis plus the 0.5 point. Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. The Jets are a 5.5-point home dog. So I'm going to be taking the Jets. Now, you might call me crazy, but I love a home dog. Miami played their first game of the year last week, and they looked all right, but this is their first true away game, considering that LA team seemed to have more Miami fans than Chargers fans. So, give me the Jets. Gang green, here we go. And coming up, we've got the final game of the morning, and it's the biggest line of the week. We've got the Houston Texans visiting the New England Patriots. The line is 13.5 points. Now, this is a really big line, especially considering that the Patriots, weapons at receiver are pretty low. And personally, I don't think the Patriots are just going to be able to move the ball at will on this Texans defense. They're pretty stout. I do believe the Texans will lose this game, but I don't think it's going to be by 13.5 points. Give me the Texans and the points. So in the first game of the afternoon schedule at 1:05 p.m. West Coast time, we've got the Dirty Birds, the Seattle Seahawks, coming into Tennessee Titans, minus 2.5 points. So, as per usual, the Seahawks are giving me a lot of trouble over who to pick. And honestly, they're away. I think that the Tennessee Titans are going to take this one minus 2.5. I like that pick. I think that Tennessee is the right team, even though it pains me emotionally to say that. Give me Tennessee minus 2.5. Then in the slightly later afternoon spot at 1:25 p.m. West Coast time, we've got Cincinnati Bengals visiting the Green Bay Packers. The Packers lay 8.5 points. And personally, you could have made this line a bit higher, and I would still take the Packers. The Cincinnati Bengals are the bet against team until further notice. If they aren't scoring any touchdowns, they aren't winning games, they aren't covering, they are just a mess. Give me Green Bay. And at the same time, we have the Kansas City Chiefs at the LA Chargers. The Chargers are 3.5-point home dogs. The Chargers are 0-2. They always lose by 3. I tend to think that the Chiefs or the Chargers will not go 0-3. And if they do, they will lose by 3 points exactly. So give me the Chargers plus 3.5. Might sound crazy. The Chiefs are a lot better, but the Chargers are at home. I mean, I know their home crowd is not that great. Oh my God, this is difficult. No, give me Chargers, 3.5 points. That's what we're going with. Whew. And in the Sunday night game, we have a pretty decent game, actually. We've got Oakland Raiders at the Washington Redskins. The Skins are 3.5-point home dogs. I will personally be taking the Oakland Raiders. I think they're a much better team here. They're looking confident. They're just smashing teams. Marshawn Lynch is coming in, crushing fools. I'm taking Oakland Raiders. Call me crazy. I'm doing it. Give me Raiders minus the points. And as for the Monday night game, we have a NFC matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals. And this either could be a decent game or a terrible game, depending on what versions of each team decide to show up. I tend to think that the Cowboys have a lot more potential than the Cardinals, so give me the Cowboys minus 3.5 points. So that's it for the games of the week. As for my best bets, I will pick Baltimore minus 3.5, Atlanta minus 2.5, Denver minus 2.5, Oakland minus 3.5, and Green Bay minus 8.5 for 5 favorites. Yeah. And once again, if I get 4 out of my 5 best bets, I'm going to be buying that crazy sweater that I put up on Twitter. And my survivor pick for the week will be Green Bay. So that's all the picks for the week. Tell me what I'm doing wrong in the comments section or on Twitter, which is @HotActionPod. Give me a like or subscribe. And once again, thanks to Apollo for making the new intro music. Thank you very much. And once again, Apollo.